Greetings, all. We are live now. So I am going to be talking about Ifa divination. So I received so many questions about Ifa divination, what it is, what it looks like, what it's for, especially since the last live stream. And then I also had a few questions from individuals about you know, Ifa divination is, what is going on inside of it, what should you expect, things like that. And that's what I want to cover in this session. Before I get started, I do want to remind you guys to definitely sign up for our newsletter so that you can catch me live. You can catch all of the work that we put out related to the Ifa tradition, African spirituality, and so much more. Definitely, we also have the Ifa Orisha course available where we dive much deeper. I will just say now we dive much deeper into Ifa divination, what it is, and then the outcomes. We give you all incantations. We talk about some of the core Orishas and how you can interact with them and engage with them to have a solid experience and understanding of what Ifa is. Likewise, we do offer Ifa divination through Asanee 44. So if you're interested in getting a reading, absolutely check us out there. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. I got quite a few people already joining on IG. And so the first thing is I want to talk about what Ifa divination is. So an Ifa reading is specifically through the Yoruba spiritual tradition, which is referred to by the same name, Ifa. This reading is done with specific sacred tools that are going to generate what we call an Odu, which is a sacred verse. If you're not familiar with African traditions, an Odu or verse is basically like a scripture from the Bible or maybe a surah from the Quran or something like that. It's not the exact same in that you are reading the text word for word and applying everything into your life. All of the Odu definitely applies to each and every one of us at some stage in our lives. However, an Odu is based on the Odu that will be generated. Let me go back and say that during a Nephi reading is going to be based on what is going on in your life at that particular time. But again, like many of you all on Instagram and even so on YouTube, you see where I post the Odu. A lot of you all really enjoy that. You tell me quite often. Those verses, of course, they're going to apply to you anytime, at any given time, right? Because they're based on life experiences and what we are all going through. The Ifa reading basically pulls out what Odu is applicable to that individual at that specific time in their journey. And he's going to give you a lot of information about what you need to know and what you need to do to remedy your issues. And so herein is the most critical aspect of an Ifa reading is that it comes with prescriptions, okay? And ebo, which is a sacrifice, is going to be required anytime you get an Ifa reading. As I've said many times before, you are usually going to have to appease multiple spirits. So it could be 4 or 5 orishas, potentially more, but on average 4 or 5 orishas that will come up in the reading that says, hey, in order for you to get this right here in balance in your life, we are asking for XYZ sacrifices and offerings. Each Orisha has their own set of sacrifices and offerings that they generally take. However, the reading will reveal which sacrifices and offerings they need in your situation in order to remedy it. Now, you can equate this process as something akin to going to a doctor, right? So if you go to a doctor, you are going to present with whatever your symptoms are. The doctor is going to analyze you and maybe run tests, so forth and so on, and then determine what your condition is. And then after that, write you up a prescription based on your situation. Same thing happens in an Ifa reading. You are going to get a reading that the reading is like the assessment of you going to the doctor to get the diagnosis, so to speak. You're going to get a prescription, which is the EBO part of the prescription. I'm going to get into some other areas as well of things that come up in an Ifa reading. So that prescription or that EBO is going to tell you what you need in your condition. Just like at the doctor, when they have a certain amount of specific types of medicine, I should say, that go along with specific disease states, the doctor usually has quite a few things to choose from, especially in the modern age where there's so many different prescriptions and drugs that you can take. The doctor doesn't prescribe everybody the same thing. The doctor prescribes certain things to certain individuals based on other things that's going on with their patient or what have you, other complications, comorbidities, contraindications, and things like that. So everybody doesn't get the same thing because one client or one patient rather could be allergic to one type of drug. So we're not going to give them that drug. We're going to give them something alternative that's going to fit their needs at that particular time. Okay, or it could be, a woman is pregnant, so she can't take certain things. She needs to take this. Similar when it comes to an EBO. And I say that to say because sometimes people may have the same issue, right? And they may even have the same Odu that comes up in their Ifa reading, but they may be given different EBO based on their specific circumstances. So you can never compare two Ifa readings. One person gets a reading and then another person will get a reading that is completely different. And thank you. You said you're right, Iya. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And guys, chime in if you do have any questions as I go through this. I'm trying to make this as thorough as possible because I get this question all the time about what Ifa Divination is and what to expect and so forth. So moving forward, you want to get that. Then it could also present certain taboos based on the Odu or based on whatever the circumstances are. Everybody doesn't necessarily get a taboo, get their taboos, a list of taboos rather, every time they get an Ifa reading. It just completely depends on your particular scenario or circumstances, okay? Typically, you're going to see temporary taboos come up, but it could absolutely be permanent ones. Just depends. You can ask about taboos because we do get that quite often when we get Ifa readings. We cannot give you your permanent taboos, especially related to being initiated unto Ifa until you go through that full initiation process. However, some permanent taboos may come up depending on what goes on in the reading, especially like if you are told your head Orisha. So you may get some taboos connected to your head Orisha that may be permanent. I gave the example before, like if Obatala is your head Orisha, you're not going to be able to wear red, right? That's pretty much standard. So, and that's something for your entire life journey. So you need to definitely be mindful of that reality as well. Somebody is asking Isha the Empress, how do you recommend finding an Ile if you are non-initiate interested in the path? So I'm going to say here, definitely we offer those services. That being said, there are a number of ways to go about it. There's so many people that you can find online if you're interested, especially with working with someone out of Nigeria. And I'm going to harp on that point later on because it's so imperative right now that you do connect with the right person. So thank you for that question because this is a very important question. I'm going to say, definitely do your research online. Similar to what I'm doing now, connect with people who are discussing the tradition online. Listen to them, get their messages, see if they resonate with you, with where you're coming from, right? Similar again to like finding a doctor, trying to figure out which doctor to go to. You hopefully wouldn't just go and grab anybody, everybody, right? You're going to look for somebody that would resonate with you in so many different areas. Of course, like if you have insurance, that's going to be a major factor as far as if they're in network, out of network, that type of thing. And that would be similar to like the geographical considerations with finding an Ifa priest or priestess. Also, you're going to look at other things. It may be important for you that your doctor is a male, or it may be important that your doctor is a female, depending on your sex or gender or what have you. Same thing for, Ifa. Some people only, like some women only want to work with an Iya. Some men only want to work with an Ifa priest. It's your choice. But I would definitely say start with aligning what you want, your vision of where you want to go, and then start to search it out that way. You can also get recommendations, right? We get a whole lot of recommendations from people who come to us. They tell their family and friends who are interested in integrating into the Ifa tradition about us. And so, we help them to navigate down that process as well. But there are so many places. Start online. If you have a temple near you, maybe go and just visit and talk to the person. And you may have to get a reading. So I'm not going to open up that door and say, everybody is okay with you just coming and having a sit down chit chat with them, because like that's a lot of energy and also time. And if that person is busy, they may not have the opportunity to do that. But they absolutely would probably be willing to sit and speak with you in the context of an Ifa reading. So I hope I answered your question there. But going back to the essence of the reading itself. So I talked about the taboos. Warnings may come up as well, which are similar to taboos. They're not like as prohibitive, if you will, but it's like you should be careful of this. One example for me personally, and this is why you guys see me with these light colors all the time. One of my warnings is that I should wear white, right? Because that is something, for whatever reason, I agreed to. I do know why, because like other colors can get me heated, especially red or whatever. I have a very fiery disposition or temperament. You probably don't notice it because white does calm me down. It's not that I'm violating a taboo if I decide to wear red or, another color that is more hot, right? But if I do, then I can, obviously get myself into some problems. So that's just one quick example of what a warning may look like. In some cases, colors can be taboos, like I said before with Obata, like you may not be able to wear red. It could be taboo for you. And then another thing that could come up in an Ifa reading is recommendations for you to get an Orisha icon, or even it could be a requirement. And I'm going to say that with some trepidation here, because yes, it may come up like you need to initiate unto Ifa or another Orisha. Otherwise, you could potentially lose your life early or suffer some kind of sickness or illness or something like that. In that case, it would be a requirement. That being said, nobody should ever pressure you. The Ifa priest or priestess is required to give you that information. They're not doing their job if they aren't. However, they should never put you in a space of fear, right? So this is the information. If you don't do XYZ right now, then you could potentially, excuse me, lose your life, or you could potentially suffer serious health issues. After that, you do what you want to do with that information, okay? Hopefully, you would go ahead and move forward. Excuse me, guys. But if you choose not to, that's on you. And we're going to get to what happens when you do not follow through on the EBO, the prescriptions that come after it. So you're saying every Odu in Ifa speaks about initiation. Okay. So, you can explain that further if you desire to do so. So, going back to what I was saying, this is number one as far as what Ifa divination is. This is a general overview. Of course, there's so many more intricacies involved in it as far as what it looks like, but this is the basis of it. Now let's look at some common themes that are going to be addressed in an Ifa reading. Ifa is a way of life. It speaks about your entire experience. Okay. It's not just about one thing. Any problem, any issue you are having in life, you can come to Ifa and get a deeper understanding of what's going on and what to do about it. So it could be your destiny, your life path, if you're interested in that aspect of your life, spirituality, spiritual development, alignment, things like that. But yes, if you're having health problems, serious health problems, it doesn't really matter what they are. Okay, you can come and get an Ifa reading related to that. Relationship problems, marital problems, financial problems, etc. Anything that you're going through, you can come to Ifa for. Likewise, the Odu itself, even if you don't have specific questions when you come and get an Ifa reading, the Odu itself could present information related to any aspect of your life of as far as what you're going through at that time. Okay. Um, so you guys are going back and forth about each and every Odu, speaking about initiation. I think what he's saying is that the core of the message of any Odu would be that you need to get initiated. It's not to say that every reading that comes up, every Odu that comes up for everybody, you're going to be told that you need to get initiated. So you can kind of correct me there. I can't pronounce the word, but I will. You can correct me there if you want to. Um, so definitely. So he's saying yes. So yeah, like it foundationally, it's about you need to basically get initiated or develop a stronger connection with an Orisha, with Ifa, or what have you. That's what he's saying is foundationally. Like it's not normal because I don't want to say exact because I can't say in everybody's situation. It may be for you that every time you go and get an Ifa reading that, legitimately you're being told that you should initiate unto a specific Orisha. It could be that way. That's not the case as far as what we see with everybody that we work with. Like everybody that comes in, we don't produce and don't do this saying, you must get initiated or you should get initiated onto this Orisha. It definitely happens. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but initiation to, let me say this, first of all, it's not mandatory except in certain very specific situations. And even so, when you take that route, you need to know what you're doing. Even if it's revealed, if you go and get your first Ifa reading and it says you should initiate unto Ifa or whatever other Orisha in order to have balance, deeper level balance and connectivity in your life. If you're not ready to initiate, do not initiate. Don't let anybody take you down that path before you're ready. It doesn't make sense for you to do so, guys. And that's a whole nother conversation that I'll probably do a different live stream on at a different time. I got Noel saying, Ifa Divination mentions to get an egg icon. Can one reach out to a local Ifa practitioner to fulfill the directive? Okay, this is an interesting question, which I kind of addressed before too in a past live stream. So if you got an Ifa divination telling you to get whatever, egg icon, whatever it is, I recommend that you work with the person who gave you that reading. If you don't feel comfortable as far as getting your Egbe icon, if you don't feel comfortable doing so, go and get a reading from someone else. See if that comes up again in the reading. And if you feel comfortable with working with that individual, with that getting an Egbe icon, do that. But do not go to one person, get a reading, whatever comes up in that reading, and then go to another person to try to get your ritual work performed or something like that. A good Ifa priest or priestess will not go off of somebody else's reading that they do not know. Okay, if they're working together, they're in the temple and they know that person, they trust that person. It's a completely different thing. But let's say you got a reading from somebody in Nigeria, but you live in Arizona, right? So I'm in Arizona. If you live in Arizona, you say, well, I'm gonna go over here to this priest and get my Egbe icon or even my ritual work or what have you done, and they don't know each other, they're not connected to each other in any way, shape, or form, like that is not something that I recommend. And to be honest with you, if you are dealing with someone, I'm gonna say it like this: if you're dealing with somebody who is okay with doing that without doing the reading for you, be careful, right? I would recommend you not deal with somebody like that, because most Ifa priests and priestesses want to work off of their own reading, okay? And you want that as well. Similar, again, going back to the example of a doctor, you go to one doctor, they tell you have a condition, they may refer you out to someone else, right? But if they don't, and you make the decision on your own to go and get like treatment from another doctor, then you are making that decision on your own, and that other doctor will still need to assess you for themselves, right? They may look at the paperwork and everything from the previous doctor, but they're going to want to do their own work to ensure, unless it's like lab work or something like that that's more definitive and objective or what have you. So yeah, that's my recommendation there. You're very, very welcome. So again, anything could come up in an E5 reading. You get an Odu, the Odu could speak on any aspect of your life. So definitely be mindful of that. I think I got to come in here on. So here, Jesse, you're saying I'm going through a serious bad case of financial diminish right now. Nothing is going right. Reach out to us, Jesse, and we can walk you through that process if you want to work through that. Ifa is about every aspect of life, and it absolutely works if you're working with the right person. Okay, you can get, when I say a ritual, you can get help. I'm not going to just say a ritual. You can get help with any aspect of your life. That doesn't mean it's going to be instant and easy for everybody, because every situation is different. Some people, they find relief immediately. Some people, it takes some time. But if you got somebody that knows what they're doing, you can get your ritual work and you can get yourself situated. And you do not have to be an Ifa practitioner for this to work out for you. We work with Christians and Muslims and people of all religious backgrounds. I got another coming here. When you're getting your life Odu during Ifa initiation, does that Odu give each person a specific career path that they should be taking? Or does that depend on the person? Very good question. Yes, it depends on the person. There are situations where it will give you like specific paths that are going to work well for you. You're not required to take those paths, but it may like literally come up that, it's a good path for you to go and be an engineer. Whereas somebody else may come and get a reading and it may not be so specific or something like that. In the case, if you're looking for an understanding of what career path to take, if you have something specific in mind, I suggest you ask about that, right? So, I'm thinking about being a lawyer, for instance. Is this a good career path for me? You can absolutely do that. But there are situations where the reading itself, without you even asking, may present that information on its own. It may not be something that you're even thinking about, right? So it could be, and it's just from person to person. So these are some of the things that can come up. Now, I want to get to the importance of Ebo, or those sacrificial offerings. And when I say Ebo here, I'm specifically referring to an animal sacrifice. It also comes with offerings, but I want to be clear that we're talking about animal sacrifice, because now we live in a day and age where people or they don't want to give animals because it's veganism, so forth and so on. If you're a vegan and you have an issue with animals, with killing animals or anything like that, don't practice Ifa. It's as simple as that, right? Go and do something that's more conducive to what you want to do. Hoodoo, I would say, is a much better practice for somebody like that who wants to integrate into tradition and doesn't want to kill animals. But beyond that, this happens. Why do we use animal blood? Okay, we do not sacrifice humans. Let me say that as well. That's not part of traditional Ifa practice. Can somebody go and do rituals based on Ifa principles, sacrifice a human and get results for somebody? Absolutely, they can do that. But that is not part of Ifa to do harm or ill will to someone. So I'm not saying those things do not happen. I'm saying that's not a part of Ifa tradition. So somebody's like telling you or encouraging you, or even so you bring this up to go and sacrifice a human, that's not what's done. It's definitely not what we do. So if that comes up in any way, you need to be very, very cautious of the person that you're dealing with. Okay, but why are animals sacrificed in Ifa? To bring about balance. Blood is based on the life force. All right, that's what keeps you going. Women, this happens all the time. Every month when you bleed, you're going through a ritual. It is a cleansing ritual. That cleansing ritual is meant to bring about balance. Okay, this is one of the reasons why women are more closely connected and have that intuitive insight and so forth to the spiritual realm, because we do bleed if everything is normal and going on with you in that way, right? That's the same notion of giving a blood sacrifice. It balances out the dynamics for you. The animal or whatever is chosen during, well, the animal is based on, again, what that Orisha takes and what's going on with you at the time. Okay. So, Jamie, you're asking, so with the Odu being the word of God, so what's said in the Odu shall come to pass regardless, right? The Ebo just makes the chances of what the word of God said even greater, right? So, what is going to happen, and you can consider the word of God, coming from a Christian context, I'm assuming, you can equate that to the word of God if you want to. Ifa is really about your destiny. So it's what basically was already written. You can see it any way, you choose to correlate that. So yeah, this is what was already written. This is your destiny. This is what's going to happen. The elbow doesn't make the chances of it happening greater. Instead, the elbow balances out things. Okay. So if it's something negative that's about to transpire, the elbow will balance things out so that either it doesn't happen, it is not negative, or if it's maybe already in motion, the impact is not as bad for you. If it's saying something good is about to manifest, because it can come that way too, that blessings are about to come to you, you still need to give a bow. Why? To balance things out. In the cosmos, there is duality. For every good, there's something bad that's also going to happen. So when you have spiritual forces that see something good coming your way, these are evil spiritual forces I'm referring to here, they're likewise going to try to take that away from you or cause you problems with that issue. So if it says you're about to be blessed in a specific way, you still want to give elbow, because a lot of people do ask that too. Well, I'm about to get blessings, why I need to give elbow? So that that spiritual force can protect you. All right. So that you can get what's coming to you without having to suffer from any negative or evil consequences of it. So that's what that looks like. But the elbow itself, giving the elbow, does not make, that happen or not happen, the elbow is about balancing out those dynamics so that things can go smoothly in your situation. I hope that answered your question. And I hope you're here. Let me know if you're here. In the comments, please. Let me know if anything I've said, you want to add to whatever I said so far about this, because he's supposed to be with us in the session today. You are very welcome, Jamie. So going back to what I was saying, yeah, so it's about alignment. Elbow is about alignment. You should always get your elbow. You should always get all of your elbow, all right? Because I did say before, when it comes to getting an Ifa reading, that you should get at least one. This was in a previous live stream, and somebody did ask me about this, saying so I should only get one. That's not what I'm saying at all. You should try to get all of your elbow, period. All of it is important. But we do understand there may be a situation where you're going through something significant. You get the Ifa reading. Maybe you can't afford everything at one time. You need to start at least getting one at a time. That's what I meant by what I stated. I wasn't saying just get one, right? Get it all. Get it all done if you can, okay? Start with, the process. Get that one done. Maybe stuff will start to transpire and move smoothly for you. Then you can get the other work done. I recommend trying to get it all done within 30 days of the reading. Right away is when you should get it done, immediately. Okay, so let me say this. But again, understanding everybody's situation is not the same financially, because it can be very, very expensive. And, full transparency, I let people know on average, it's about $500 to $1,000 USD to, in case anybody's watching me from anywhere else, to get your full-on elbow done. Elbow refers to the sacrifices only. I'm not speaking about Orisha pies here. That's a different story. Okay. That's from our side. That's from what we do at Asanee 44. So I want to be transparent. So if you're coming to get an Ifa reading, you need to know the prospective amount that you are going to pay. I encourage you to do that with anybody. If you're going to get a reading from somebody else, ask them in general, what does that look like? So that way you can be prepared in your mind. Okay, I know I might at least have to pay $500 for the full elbow. All right. Individually, the elbow can be cheaper. So I'm not saying that it may be that if you're sacrificing just one thing, it could be $100, $200, something like that. But I'm talking about the full elbow, depending on what comes up in your individual reading. Try to get it all done, guys. All right. If you can't, try to work with your Ifa priest or priestess to help you along the way and get an understanding of what you should be doing. Thank you. Thank you, Awal. He's saying love all what you said about Ifa Divination. Thank you. If you have any, thing that you want to chime in, let me know, right? Because this is a process, understanding too that, Ifa is something, the Odu rather, is something that's primarily remembered. Nowadays, yeah, we do have books and things like that with the Odu written down, but traditionally it has been remembered. So everybody has a piece of it and nobody knows it all. Do understand that as well. So, I've discussed this before too. In Nigeria, most of the time at a temple, you're going to see people working together reciting the Odu once it's generated for a reading. In America specifically, I'm speaking about because I've seen it done here. A lot of times you do have just one person because of the way it operates. It's not easy to just go to go find, I should say, an Ifa temple in the same way it's set up in Nigeria, in America. Okay, so you might go somewhere, you might only be interfacing with one person who does your reading. Very common. So the information, I say all that to say that the information is spread throughout, Everybody has a specialty or an area that they know a whole lot more about than other areas, right? So nobody's perfect. Nobody knows everything when it comes to this. So yeah, just to finish up my point there, as far as this part goes, do your sacrifices. You're gonna pay for it either way it goes, right? You're gonna sacrifice in some form or fashion. So if it comes up that you gotta give certain sacrifices, and those sacrifices, let's say for instance, total to $1,000, and you saying I can't pay it, or I'm not going, I don't have it right now, or what have you, legitimately, because you may not, you are still going to pay in some way, because the sacrifice will come to pass. Whether that looks like you not being able to get the things that you desire, or it looks like something bad transpiring in your life where you're going to experience some kind of evil or harm that you don't want to experience. Okay. Because I've dealt with that too, where somebody gets a reading and they can't get everything done, or they choose not to get everything done. Most of the time it's like, well, I just choose not to do this, right? And so then they start to see the impact of whatever it is they chose not to get done. One example that comes to mind here is I did have a client who it was told to him that something would happen to his children if he didn't give specific sacrifices and offerings. He did the sacrifices and offerings for the things that were related to him. I'm not gonna say he didn't care about what happened to his children. I don't know his situation as to why he chose not to do that offering related to his children at that time. However, he did do so. I don't think it made 3 days out when he made that decision, and he came back to me saying that a really bad situation was going on with his daughter, and could he do these sacrifices then? And we went ahead and did it. That situation turned around for her. However, it had started because he didn't do the required sacrifices. So this is why I'm saying you are going to pay either way. And understand, even if you don't get an Ifa reading, you're still paying for the things. It's just that you don't know what you don't know, right? And nobody can be held liable for that. But so many people walk around with problems like we just mentioned, serious financial problems, in debt, don't know how to get out of it because they're not doing their sacrifices and offerings because they just don't know what to do. And there could be some serious spiritual dynamics behind that. So this is why I'm even having this conversation, what Ifa Divination is and what you should do when it comes to this. Now, I do want to talk about some things related to ethics, all right, and misconceptions about this process. Understand, like I said before, an Ifa reading is not meant to get you into a space of fear. It's not meant to control you or anything like that. Instead, Ifa Divination is meant to give you information so that you can make better decisions in life and you can balance your life out properly. You should not be afraid. Oh my God, this is going to happen. Nobody should be presenting information to you in a way that makes you fearful, as I said before. Even if it comes up that you may be about to experience physical death in a reading, and if a priest or priestess is required to present that information to you, but in a logical manner, not to scare you. Oh my God, you are going to die. Or if you don't get your elbow done, something bad is going to happen to your family. No, none of that. All right. If somebody's doing that to you, you need to run away from them because that is not ethical whatsoever, according to traditional practice. Okay. Somebody, asked this question earlier about, how do you find an Elay? You have to do your homework. I always say start with your ancestors. Those of us in the diaspora, start with your ancestors. Begin an ancestral veneration practice. I have two resources. I have a full-on book that talks about how you can begin ancestral veneration, and I also have a course about how to set up an ancestral altar in order to initiate that communication with your ancestors. I always recommend those resources to people. Many people have found them very, very helpful along their journey. That being said, the way we deal with our ancestors in the diaspora is not the same according to the Ifa tradition. Not necessarily in Africa as a whole, because you do see many of the same dynamics like we see in hoodoo and things like that in South Africa, right? In other places as well, but South Africa specifically, I'm very familiar with that concept. Do what you got to do to connect with your ancestral lineage. You can even speak directly to your Ori. Your Ori is your higher self, all right? I always say to ancestors because typically you are going to go ahead and get an altar which serves as a focal point for you to have that conversation or that communication with your ancestral spirits. Okay. You can speak to Ori. There is, nothing equivalent to like an Ori icon outside of the Ifa tradition that I would recommend somebody going and like setting up an altar to their Ori, for instance. That notion suits you, you can do some more research into it, but it's not something that I really recommend to people. But you can absolutely get an Ori icon, but that comes later on after you've started to integrate into the tradition. So, but in general, start with your ancestral connections. Ask them to guide you and lead you to where you need to go. I've told this story many times. That is how I ended up journeying into, the right space, working with our Adissa as I do now as my priest, right? He's my owl, and he also works with other people through Asanee 44. He's the only person that I recommend at this time because that's who I have the most comprehensive experience with. And I know his work, and I know that his work is excellent, right? For me personally and my family. Um, there are others. I'm not saying he's the only one by any means. That's just who I know personally. I've worked with other people that I would never recommend to anyone because I didn't have great experiences with them. But again, it goes back to, even me getting into that space, not having those great experiences, and me calling on my ancestors. And I said, I'm about to leave this alone. Ifa, here. I'm about to leave this alone unless if you want me to practice, you got to send me the right person. And, I don't think it made a week. I don't know how many days. I'm going to say maybe about 3 days. Okay. After that is when I met our Adissa, and we, began to develop that connection, and I began to understand Ifa on a much deeper level. Okay. I had somebody I could go to and talk to and ask those critical questions to. It was important to me, and this is another thing here I'm going to say, guys, just be careful with dealing with people in the diaspora. It was so important to me personally to deal with somebody out of Nigeria. And I know that can present so many inconveniences because of the distance. However, that's where the tradition, like West Africa, I'm not going to say it originated in Nigeria, but it originated in West Africa through the Yoruba people, and it spread in that region. So we still have it been practiced in Benin, Ghana, but Nigeria is most famous for it right now. I'm not saying not to work with somebody in America, but if you do, you really need to check their background and their understanding of what's going on, because I am seeing so much horrible stuff come through. It is unreal. People coming to me saying somebody told them to do some of the most ridiculous things in the world. And all of these things are through diasporan priests and priestesses. All right, I'm going to just say it like that. I'm not calling out any names or anything in that way. This is why education is so important as well. This is why we developed the course, and we are continuously developing resources. We also have a free Ifa initiation guide. So you go on my website and download that so that you can understand the intricacies of Ifa Divination. Know what you are doing when you go down this path so people cannot easily fool you and tell you the wrong things. Connect with your ancestors so that they can lead you to the right places, because you'll feel it when you start talking to your ancestors. They'll lead you to the right person, the right places, and also you'll feel it in your spirit if that is the person for you or not. Pay attention to your intuition, to your Ori. Develop a relationship with your Ori. All right, so that you're more connected. That looks like praying. That looks like meditating, spending more time in nature, getting connected to their source, because you'll know. Like if you are serious, and I say this all the time, if you are truly serious about this journey, if you're not playing with it or you're not just going into it as like kind of a, get out of jail free card or something like that, but if you're serious about developing a connection with Ifa, going back into the tradition, your Ori is always going to lead you to the right place. You'll always feel it. You'll know if this person is for me or not. All right. Take the time out to listen. Don't be in a rush. Don't be in a hurry to get to a specific place. Take your time. All right. That's the notion here, as far as especially dealing with the ethical considerations or what have you. All right. Ifa is not about doom and gloom. It's about solutions. So that's what anybody should be presenting to you. All right. So I'm going to close up soon. I want to talk about this last thing. What should you do after you get an Ifa reading? Guys, feel free to go ahead and put any questions you may have in the comment section so that I can address those before I close up, because I got about 15 minutes left. So the first thing is follow through. You want to be compliant with whatever comes out of the reading. That's the elbow. We already talked about it. Definitely get your elbow performed. But whatever else comes up, I talked before about taboos and warnings and things like that. You need to follow those things as well, right? Don't go and just do the elbow and think that's it. If you're told in the reading, for instance, I was about to say not to eat snake. That can come up. It has come up. That's actually a taboo for me. But I know it is not a big deal in the diaspora for people to eat snake. I'm going to say fish, right? Because that's one of my taboos. If it says to not eat fish, do not eat fish. That's what that looks like, okay? It's also about compliance. This is a prescription. This is a solution. Just like going to the doctor, your doctor gives you medication and they say, this is the medication that you take for this. You need to get plenty of rest, drink plenty of water, eat this particular type of food or what have you. Don't consume too much salt, etc., etc., etc. You need to do all of that in order to get well. Same thing here. If you're given a kosher, for instance, it could be that that's another part I left out too. So it could be a kosher spiritual medicine that comes up that you need in addition to other things. It could be some spiritual soap. It could be some powders that you need to consume. Yeah, so you need to do that. You have to follow through on all of that if you want to see change in your life. It's not just about the elbow. You might have to take spiritual remedies to deal with your particular circumstance or situation. And it's nothing wrong with it. It's very common, right? And it's very helpful. Let me say that too, because I deal with a crochet all the time. And it has been very, very beneficial in my life in many ways. So do that. If you need to follow up with your priest or whoever did the divination for you, do that as well. Guys, you should be able to communicate with whoever you are dealing with as far as getting a reading from them. That is another major area as well, because I do get a lot of questions from people who come to me and they DM me or what have you, or email me and say, hey, I had this particular situation and they want me to guide them through that. I don't do that. If you went to somebody else, you need to go and talk to them about it. I answer basic questions. I get them all the time and I appreciate you guys. So if it's something basic, no issue. But if it's something in terms of something that you got from someone else, somebody gave you a reading and they didn't explain certain things to you, like, you should be able to go and ask them and communicate with them. If you can't, if you feel like for whatever reason you can't have that conversation with them, you're probably not dealing with the right person. Okay, because you need to be able to communicate with them, whatever it is, whatever reason you feel like you can't do so, you need to like maybe move on to somebody else or have a deep level conversation with them if they're not answering your questions the way you feel like they should be answering your question. You should be questioning yourself as far as are you with the right person at that particular point. Okay. um so also take your time to document or recognize any types of shifts or experiences that you're having. Right, you get the elbow done, you're taking a crochet, what have you. Journal that, document that, whatever way suits you, in terms of what changes are you experiencing from that process. Right, again, going back to the example of a doctor, if you're taking a prescription medication and you're not getting better, maybe that prescription didn't work properly, right? Maybe that one wasn't for you. So you might need another prescription. Okay. It could be something like that. Especially when it comes to a crochet, the ritual work is different, right? So when the elbow comes out, that's standard. That's a pretty solid process if the person did the reading right. A crochet can be similar to that. Maybe you are given a certain medicine, and usually it's going to be determined through divination. Like, is this going to be the best course or a good course of treatment for this person? And so they go down that path, but maybe it doesn't work for you for whatever reason. It could be that you're taking something else or doing something else to where that particular spiritual remedy doesn't work well for you. In that case, you need to, be paying attention to that, documenting that, and communicating with the person who did the reading for you and saying, this isn't working for me, or it may cause other problems for you. So definitely be having those conversations. Okay. And finally, typically you are going to do an Ifa reading every 30 days, an Ifa devotee. Let me say it like this. So if you're traveling down the path where you actually want to practice Ifa, it is standard to do a reading about every 30 days or so. All right. Or whatever suits you. I always say again, I default to be prepared for the elbow. So if you can't do elbow every 30 days, don't get a reading every 30 days. I don't recommend any more than 3 months out. But again, if you can't afford the elbow, don't get don't go down that path until you are ready for that particular process. All right. Otherwise, if you just want to know what's going on in your life, you just having one particular problem, you could be Christian, Muslim, whatever. We serve people from pretty much any religious or spiritual background. It doesn't really matter. You can still go and just get a reading, get what you need from that space, and keep moving. We've helped so many people get, love situations. That's a really big one. Some people, they are just having problems with finding the right mate. And so they come to us and we do the ritual work. They get that done. They're, get that mate. They keep moving forward. If they have another issue down the road sometime, they come back. They don't practice Ifa. That's perfectly fine. You can serve any Ifa priest or priestess will serve you regardless of what you practice. Any traditional, I say, any traditional or standard Ifa priest or priestess. It's not with regard to you having to be into this tradition in order to be served by this tradition. So that's all I have for you guys. Check me out on the Asanee 44 website if you want more information about what I do. This recording will be available on YouTube for those of you watching on IG, because the recording doesn't stay on IG. So if you kind of were coming in and out, or you call me later on, definitely check it out on YouTube. So you're saying, how often can you do the recommendation that's on your Ifa reading? How often can you do the recommendation? I don't quite understand what you mean by that. So like if you get a reading, if I don't know what recommendation you're talking about. So you should be doing whatever comes up in that reading whatever it says. So if it comes up with an elbow, you go ahead and do that elbow for that reading. So maybe that's what you're talking about. It may say in the reading something like, you need to perpetuate your ori on a regular basis, for instance. If it says that, you can perpetuate your ori as often as you like. That means, seeking out your priest or priestess and getting and doing sacrifices or what have you through them. Okay, you can do that part as often as you like. If you're saying, this came up in my reading, how often can I do these same sacrifices and offerings? Typically, you're not going to do it that way, right? Because that information came up for that particular reading. And so if it's another, you go get another reading, it could be a completely different set of sacrifices and offerings that you're going to get after that. So yeah, you don't want to, you don't just repeat. You have to get another reading to figure out what's going on with you at that time. If it's, as far as like I said before, if it's a recommendation, like, perpetuate ori often, or issue, or whatever spiritual force it may be, you're going to do that whenever you feel like it. So you can set up a schedule to say, you know what, I want to give an offering to ori every month. You can choose to do that, or you can just choose to do it whenever it comes up, right? For me, I try to do it on a regular basis every 30 days, but sometimes, or somebody else would, get me before then, like a dream or something like that, because I have quite a few dreams. And, I'm always going to, I had this dream, what does it mean? Sometimes it doesn't mean anything at all. Sometimes it does. In the situation where it does, I go ahead and do my sacrifices and offerings based on that. Okay, so you're saying the reading is for the year. If the reading is for the year, you just should be giving those sacrifices and offerings based on what you got for that year, and it should be finished. Like, as far as my knowledge, I've never seen it. We don't do it this way. I'm gonna say it that way, where you get an Ifa reading in for the year, and you're going to just repeatedly do the same sacrifices and offerings throughout the year from that same reading, unless it's, like I said before, it's a situation where they're saying you need to perpetuate this particular orisha on a regular basis. And even then, you probably won't be giving the same exact sacrifices and offerings to them all the time, right? You would want to check. Yeah, you can say, if especially if it's like a gold or the highest thing that they take. So if you want to just, like, for instance, give Ifa a goat every 30 days, nothing at all wrong with that, right? But if it's something like, for instance, you want to feed Ifa a chicken every 30 days, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend checking, because it doesn't make much sense to just give Ifa a chicken all the time. If it doesn't make sense to give any orisha any offering that they don't want at that particular time, right? And especially when we're talking about the lower level offerings, because the chicken is a lower level offering. And so you can give Ifa a chicken, but if Ifa doesn't want the chicken at that time, it's not going to do you much good. If Ifa is saying that he wants a goat, you need to give Ifa a goat. So again, that comes with just doing a check-in. If it's somebody that you're working with often, you could just say, hey, check this for me. I want to give an offering to, Ifa right now. What's the best, to give to them? You don't have to get a full-on reading for that. And like, if it's somebody that you're working with, if you're an established client for them, they're typically not going to charge you extra for something like that, just to say what's best to feed this orisha if you are about to feed that orisha. Okay, because it does require work to see those things. Not a whole lot of work, but it does require them to, pull out their divination tool. So you must respect that as well. Okay, so if you were told to pour red palm oil out at a tree, did they say that you should do this frequently, or did they say that you should just do it one time? That's a question for them because it goes back to what I was saying before. Only I get you saying on the tree. I understand you. You have to ask that person because only they can tell you what they meant by that. I don't know, what they meant by if it should it be just one time. Even so, if they're telling you to do something like that, they should be telling you the steps in the process that you should be taking. Like, how do you go about pouring red palm oil onto a tree? Is it just to do it? Nah, you need more information in that, guys. You need to be empowered to go and communicate with the people that you're dealing with. If somebody tells you to just do it and you don't understand what you're doing, like, either don't do it, go get another consultation from someone else. Why do I say that? Because you could be doing the wrong thing, you could be doing it the wrong way. Okay. If you are unclear about any type of instructions that you get from someone, you need to get clarity from that person, from where that reading came from. Because if you go and you do something wrong, you can mess some stuff up. You can cause yourself some major problems. If you go and give, like for instance, an Orisha something that is taboo to them, yeah, you can cause some issues for yourself. So you don't want to be doing anything that you're not sure of. If you are unsure, get instructions. Get on the phone with that person, a video call if possible. And if you got to do it while they're on their video calling, like I'm about to pour this, red palm oil right here on this tree, let me know if I'm doing it right. Do that. Get on a video call with them because if you are working with somebody, they should be providing you with all of that. You shouldn't have to go somewhere else and ask other people questions about what somebody told you to do. Um, okay, you say you just want to know if you can do it more than once. I don't know, because I don't know, first of all, why you were told to do it. I don't know the reasoning behind that, right? If you have like a pot, like, you're talking about red palm oil, so I'm thinking about SU here. If you have like an SU pot, you can give SU red palm oil every single day, right? And but again, that's you having a pot that you are working with. Okay. So, like, that's, again, you should always go back to the individual who did the reading for you, for them to give you that information. So I'm going to close up here, guys. Thank you, everybody who showed up for the session. I do plan to come back on Monday to do another session. So catch me then. Sign up for the newsletter so you know when I'm going live. And I will see you all another time. Ashe, have a very blessed and beautiful day and beyond, guys.